There are many things a deer hunter can do to help understand deer. Food plots, cutting back cameras, spending time on the land. But there are other factors that are left to Mother Nature. Deer dispersal is one of those factors.
The cause of dispersal is essentially the mother or that doe tends to push that buck fawn away, or that yearling buck away. She doesn't want him around, she's not social with him, and so there becomes increased pressure for him to disperse to a new area.
Is there anything a hunter can do to affect or control this?
You know, we try to control things a lot as deer hunters. We try to tip the odds in our favor no matter what we're doing, whether it's managing land or managing deer herds or which deer should we shoot. Is there anything that you can do to affect dispersal patterns? How far a buck's going to disperse from his home range, how far a doe's going to disperse from her home range.
A hunter can actually reduce rates of dispersal, and we do it all the time, through antlerless harvest. Any time that you go out and you harvest a female, you're essentially orphaning a fawn, if that doe does have fawns. And it's been shown that that this has an impact on those young bucks, that there's a higher percentage of those young bucks actually stay in their natal range than would normally be found. So when you increase doe harvest rates, what you actually do is you decrease the number of young bucks that are emigrating off of a property.
He's going to stay closer to his home range because he doesn't have those life experiences yet. He hasn't been really taught about the various parts of the topography. He's not really sure where to go. He's going to stay closer to that home range, but by the time he hits 2, he's going to be gone. So how does that help you as a hunter? Not much. You're going to keep him around a little bit longer, but for the most part, for all intents and purposes, there's not a lot you can do to affect his long-term plans.
So what happens if a whitetail buck is orphaned during that first autumn? Finds himself alone. Will he disperse right away, or will he wait till his second year? Really, I don't care if he's a 1.5-year-old, a yearling, or a 2.5-year-old. He will disperse if there's competition there. If there's mature deer, a lot of deer around, and he can see that he's just not going to get his own niche area, he'll disperse. And that all benefits everyone for hunting. That dispersion, again, it's Mother Nature's way of taking care of too many deer, no inbreeding, and helping you out to manage your property, because there's always this odd inflow coming in. It also helps balance out any of the browsing and using too much of the cover and crops that you have on your property. Plus, it helps spread genetics all over. Big bucks that are 2, 3, 4, 10 miles away may have fawns, and those doe fawns and buck fawns and eventually yearlings could disperse onto your property and grow up to be big deer. And again, spread that genetic influence throughout. So dispersion, don't worry about it. If you got deer coming and going, that's Mother Nature taking care of us all.
Hey, Tim here from Analogics Outdoors. Next up, we're going to talk about the triple threat of protein attraction and how easy it is to put out. Stay tuned.
Deer and Deer Hunting Properties is brought to you by Analogics, perfecting the science of deer feed. Ready to harvest a giant? Let Analogics help you attract, hold, pattern, and grow trophy bucks. Analogics, because there is no off-season.
Hey, Tim Newman here from Analogics Outdoors. We're out checking out food plots today, and we want to grow the best plot possible, but we don't have time to do a soil test. So we're looking at the ground. We don't know what we're going to specifically put on for fertilizers, but if you don't have the soil test, I would recommend checking out the Analogics website. We have a soil fertility guide, and you can guess whether you have high, medium, or low soil fertility, and we have fertilizer recommendations for each food plot type. But if you don't have time to make it to the food plot guide, I would suggest putting 2,000 pounds per acre of lime, and then I would put 500 pounds per acre of 13-13-13, and you'll at least have some fertilizer for the plants to utilize this growing season. Hey guys, Tim from Analogics Outdoors. We're trying to figure out what is going to be on the hit list for this fall. And what we've got here is a couple different modes of attraction that we're going to try and get to these deer. We've got a block, we've got a granular protein, and then we've got a liquid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this site so that we can put up a trail camera, figure out what bucks are in this area. And this is all going to be highly nutritious protein source so that these animals can have a lot of nutrition going into the rut, because that's going to be a time where they're basically on a marathon. You know, they're running constantly, chasing does, and we want to get them in peak shape heading into that season that we know they're going to be having fewer nutrients on the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the block, and then I'm going to pour the granular on top of the block, and then I'm going to pour the liquid on all of it, and it's going to have a synergistic effect of attraction. You can use any of these products by themselves, they will bring in deer, but if you put all three of them together at one site, it's going to be the best attractant site that you could possibly have. If you're in an area where you can bait deer, this is a deadly combination. So you can set up a stand, you know, within shooting range of this area, and you're going to have a great opportunity to shoot a deer. But if you're in an area where you can't feed during the season, you're going to only have to be able to use this as a supplement site off season. So let me show you how easy this is. So what we're going to do here is just take the package off of this block. This is the Deer Anthem protein 5-pound. All right, and next we're going to top it with the Black Ops granular. So next we're going to take the Black Ops liquid and pour it over the entire site. I'm going to give this a good little shake. Get all the nutrients infused into the liquid. We're going to pop this top. And then we're just going to pour this. This is a little bit of a slope, so I'm going to try and pour it on the top side. Basically just infusing it into the granular protein. There we are. And as simple as that, we've got a spot where we know deer are going to be eating. We can set up the trail camera, watch the pictures roll in.
Coming up next, deer dispersal patterns means as much on your property as they do in meccas like Illinois, where we're headed next.
Last sit, last day, and that's a beautiful doe we can take home.
Usually a late fall trip to Illinois means the quest is on for a monster buck. Deer and deer hunting editor Dan Schmidt has had many successful hits in Illinois, but on this trip, he has a different agenda.
So we talked about dispersal. That might give you a little bit of an idea on how it works in the deer herd. You know, a really good example was this gun hunt in Illinois with Steve Bartilla. This property that Steve manages is prototypical, basically the best example that you can get for deer of all age classes living on a relatively large piece of land. I mean, we're talking thousands of acres here, so we're talking in square miles. So you're getting a case study of how these deer interact with each other socially and how they interact from a dispersal standpoint. We went there to hunt what we call a management buck. Now these bucks that we're hunting down there, fantasy land, older bucks, those ones that we're targeting, we're talking 5, 6-year-old bucks, sometimes even older than that. Some bucks that have narrowed their core ranges to a specific spot within those couple square miles. It didn't work out. In the cards, it just didn't work out for us on this hunt. We did not see a buck of that specific category that we could target. So what's the next option? plenty of doe tags, and I'm always happy to oblige with that. Now here is an example of how you can use dispersal behavior to your benefit when you're hunting does. And I always say this, it's with any quality deer management program, any just sensible deer management program, when you take out antlerless deer, you want to select, if possible, if you're hunting a large property, individuals from different age classes.
Great day. I'm very blessed.
Here, I shot 3 does on this trip. It was an awesome trip, a lot of fun, made a lot of venison, and it was very productive from that aspect. But instead of just running out and shooting the first 3 does that I saw, we said, you know what, let's try to spread this across the age classes, because that is going to help how the rest of those does live on that landscape. But what happened here was we took out a very fully mature doe. She was 4 or 5 years old. That was the first one. The second one was a 3-year-old doe, and the last one was a yearling doe. And you're gonna ask me, why do you do that? Well, with doe herds, what we know through dispersal is those older does, like I said, they're gonna occupy, they're basically get the high rent areas. They're gonna take the best spots.
It's gun season here and these deer are still running. But I'm gonna lock and load and sit back in and see what happens. But wait, no, we heard a crash right down here by the creek. She's done.
So when you get down to those younger deer, the last deer that I shoot is a yearling doe. She's out by herself. Very prototypical in a November situation. You've got not only young bucks, when I'm talking young bucks, buck fawns, and even yearling bucks, and you have young does, yearling does, looking for their place in life, so to speak. They're going to be doing a lot of cruising. They're going to be encountering other deer, and they're trying to find their spot, their place to rent on that landscape for the most part of the year. Great situation here. We have the doe come in, we can identify her, we can pretty much get a good age on her, and then we can get to work and put some meat on the ground.
That's it. Last day. And that's a beautiful doe we can take home. Yes.
The more you know about deer, the better deer hunter you're going to be. Now, some of that stuff that you learn is not going to be a tactic or a trick or something that's going to put that deer within bow range of you. The things you're going to learn are things like deer dispersal. And the more you know about deer dispersal, the more you're going to know how those deer specifically live on the land that you're hunting, which is going to eventually make you a better deer hunter.
Hey, it's Jason Rickman with DDH Properties, and our next segment is going to be about fear. When you're selling or fear when you're buying. Don't go away.
Deer and Deer Hunting Properties is brought to you by Orion Hunting Products. Engineered for stealth and safety, Orion's modular, lightweight design allows you to set up camp anywhere you want to hunt. No heavy equipment, no problem. Orion Hunting Products.
Hey, it's Jason Rickman with Deer and Deer Hunting Properties. This segment, we're going to talk about fear of either buying or selling the property. Now, a lot of people don't talk about the fear aspect, so let's talk about from the seller side. I think the most common fear thing I see is emotion. They're attached to their property, but they're not using their property. So how do you navigate through that, right? So a lot of times they're like, hey, I've had this property for 20 plus years, but I haven't set foot on it for the last 2 or 4 or 5 years, right? So try to take the emotion out of any time you're selling a property, right? So, and that also comes with pricing. A lot of people are like, my property is better than all my neighbors, but yet it's still the exact same property as what your neighbors were. So when we take that emotion out is when you truly can get your best value for your property and your quickest sale. So how do we overcome that? Number one is time to let go, right? Let's go of the emotion of that property. You made some great memories, you have some great buck picks on it, but it's time to make your new memories. And it's time to allow that next buyer to love it as much as you did and maybe take it to the next step, right? So that's very important from the seller side of things. You know, the price with emotion is probably the most difficult. And that comes with everybody. Every person, if I didn't hear mine is the best property, I'd probably fall over, right? Because everybody's property is better than their neighbor's, which is not true. So, you know, when you look at those, you'll jump on the internet, you'll see, hey, that my neighbor sold for $5,000 an acre, but you're telling me it's worth $4,000 an acre. Well, did we take into account that person has a building site, or that person already has established food plots and ag and you don't have that, or they have less swamp and you have more swamp? So those are all factors when playing in, when we're looking at selling land. So make sure you listen to your professional at Deer Hunting Properties, because they want the max dollar for you also. We all want the max dollar for your property, but we also don't want your property to sit on the market. If it sits on the market too long, it will cost you money, right? That sense of urgency, that leverage goes away every day it sits on the market. So what does it tell people? It tells us, hey, buyers don't want your property, or it's overpriced, and we don't want that to come out when we're trying to get max dollar for you. Now on the buying side, there's fear also, right? So there's fear of, oh my gosh, I just went into debt for $200,000 or $300,000, and I am gonna hunt it 2 weeks out of the year, right? So there's a fear there. But as most of us are, we're huge hunters. We love it, we live it, and we breathe it, so we can overcome and justify that. But be careful, you know, if you feel like you could get in jeopardy by buying a certain dollar amount property, don't do it, because then it becomes stressful, and it shouldn't be stressful, right? It should be fun and relaxing. So if you're going over budget on something just because you need to have the best, but it's stressful, don't do it. You know, let's find you a property that's maybe not as high end, but you can do a lot of the work for it to make it high end, and it's not stressful because you didn't tax your budget, right? The other aspect is, hey, somebody has a budget that's at $3,000 an acre or $4,000 an acre, but keeps looking in the areas that are $8,000 an acre or $10,000 an acre. You know, let's keep it to what we can afford in the area we can be at and still produce the deer we're looking to, and develop that property to maybe go from a $3,000 property that when you sell it in 5 years, it's worth $400 or $4,500 an acre because of the improvements we did. So as a buyer, recognize your fear. If it's becoming stressful or it will become stressful to own it, don't buy it.